And on Capitol Hill, Congress was quick to react to the 60 Minutes and Washington Post report on how opioid use has become so prominent in the U.S. CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes reports.
But they made it and camouflaged it so well that all of us were fooled. Nobody knew.
West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin says he's horrified that a bill everyone approved made the epidemic worse.
There's no oversight now the way that that bill has to be retracted. It has to be repealed.
The law sailed through the Senate last spring.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye. It had the backing of the Justice Department. It was sponsored by members of both parties. So no one in Congress thought to question it.
It's not unusual for something like this to roll through without much fanfare.
Missouri Democrat Claire McCaskill introduced a bill today to repeal last year's law.
How realistic is that? I think it's realistic. I do sense that there is a bipartisan kind of, we've got a crisis attitude about opioids now.
One of the bill's authors, Tennessee Republican Marsha Blackburn, said via a spokesperson today, if there are any unintended consequences from this bipartisan legislation, they should be addressed immediately.
DEA has all the enforcement power it needs.
But Utah Republican Orrin Hatch defended the law and the $177,000 in donations he got from the drug industry while he was pushing it through.
Heavens no. My campaign's run about $10 million. And frankly, I don't know who contributes to it at all.
Now, some Democrats are urging the president to drop his nomination of the bill's chief author, Tom Marino, to be the nation's drug czar.
It's like putting the wolf in charge of the hen house.
Lawmakers are still trying to understand why DEA dropped its initial opposition to the bill. That would have been a big red flag, Elaine, to lawmakers as they were getting ready to vote. And it's a sign that even some in law enforcement may not have realized how much the bill would tie DEA's hands.
So, Nancy, do you get the sense that the bill's authors knew what the outcome of this bill would be?
That's a fascinating question, because according to some lawmakers who you talk to, like Senator Manchin, they say absolutely they knew what was going to happen. They knew exactly how to write this language in such a way that drug distributors would have a lot more leeway and the DEA would have fewer options. But then you've got other lawmakers who co-sponsored this bill who now insist that they had no idea. In fact, one Congresswoman, Judy Chu of California, said that it was only after she started seeing a couple of stories in the Los Angeles Times last year that she reached out to the acting head of the DEA and said, hey, there are these reports out there that this law makes it harder for the DEA to crack down on distributors. Is that true? And she says that he responded, no, we're fine. We have all the power that we need. And so she felt very comforted by that conversation that she had. And so once again, it seems that there were not just mixed messages up here on Capitol Hill, but perhaps mixed messages coming from the DEA as well. And one possible reason for that I've heard from lawmakers today is that there was such a brain drain at DEA. So many top lawyers and top officials who left the agency and went to the drug industry and helped them write this legislation with lobbyists, that there may not have been a critical mass of officials at DEA who understood how this language was going to weaken their ability to crack down on some of these suspicious shipments.
And from the lawmakers, Nancy, that you spoke with, did they seem surprised that this became law right under their noses?
Yes, I mean, this is not a bill that attracted any attention at all. In fact, it seems that a lot of lawmakers thought that this was, just a technical change. They really paid no attention to it. Had a DOJ or the DEA stood up and said, hey, this is really going to impact us, please give this another look, then that would have triggered more scrutiny in congressional offices all across Capitol Hill. But that never happened. DEA had initially said it had problems with the bill, then negotiated negotiated with Senator Hatch towards the end and apparently dropped its opposition. Now, what some of these DEA whistleblowers are saying now is that they were basically steamrolled, that they could see the writing on the wall, that this bill was going to pass, and so they ended up working with Congress in the end. But what Senator Hatch says is, they had every opportunity to stand up if they felt that they needed to, and to say that they were very worried about what this legislation would do to them. And so that gets back to your initial question about whether this was deliberate or has unintended consequences, and that's a very, very difficult line to figure out.
Yeah, we'll watch to see what lawmakers decide to do next, if anything. Nancy Cordes on Capitol Hill. Nancy, thank you.
You're welcome.